guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Susan and I am so happy that you are here. I am a first-time mom and I also have a brain tumor. So let's just dive right in. Today's video is a Q&A. I asked you guys on Instagram what your questions were about the brain tumor, nothing off limits. I've been getting a lot of DMs with a lot of the same questions, so I thought that it would be best just to sit down, talk to you guys about everything, because a lot of times I go through my content and kind of do like an audit, and I realize that there's some things I just don't blatantly say because I forget that you guys aren't actually in my day-to-day life. So I think that this is a great way to catch up and round out the brain tumor content sorry, my words are hard. um, as of where we are right now. So in no particular order, I'm just reading them as they came through Instagram. The first question is, how did you get diagnosed? So I do cover this in some of my older tumor videos. The short story of how I got diagnosed is I had a grand mal seizure. I lost consciousness. I was brought via ambulance to the hospital and they did a CT scan, and that's when they found the tumor. They couldn't definitively say it was a tumor at the time. So I was transported to a different hospital where they did an MRI and they were able to diagnose it that way, but they still didn't know if it was a tumor or a lesion. What I have learned is all tumors are lesions, not all lesions are tumors. So they did what they call an MR spectroscopy. Some doctors like them, some don't trust them, but essentially it uses mathematical equations to try to tell us the chemical composition of whatever it is. That scan suggested that it is a tumor, along with other factors that both my medical teams have deemed it a tumor. But with that is all we know about it until they do a biopsy or take it out and then send it to pathology. That is all we can know at this time. We don't know if it's cancerous, we don't know if it's benign, and where doctors run off of science, they can speculate, but they can't actually say anything until they have hard evidence. And then leading up to the diagnosis, I think one of here's another one. What were your symptoms? So the only symptom of the brain tumor that I had was 2 weeks postpartum. I started having what I thought were ocular migraines. They were happening up to 15 times a day, were definitely stress related. As I got more stressed, they would become more frequent or become longer in duration, and they were like bright kaleidoscopy lights. I did a TikTok on this. I will insert that here so you can see what I'm talking about. This is what it looks like to have a brain tumor from my perspective. My tumor is in my occipital lobe, which controls the right side of my vision. Everything I'm about to show you is only ever on the right side of my vision. And what I'm seeing is actually seizure activity caused from the brain tumor. When I was 2 weeks postpartum, I started seeing colors like this. I thought they were ocular migraines and assumed they were hormone related. As going back to work got closer, I started getting more stress and it turned into something like this. These bright flashy lights would kind of move in a circular motion and it would take up to 80% of my vision on my right side. And they were more circular like this. By the time I got back to work, this was happening up to 15 times a day. And then directly after this would happen, I would have this blurriness that would last up to 10 minutes. This is a really good image of like what it would look like when it was happening. This is another pretty accurate representation of what was happening. This was happening every day for months, and then I had a grand mal seizure, which is what diagnosed the tumor. I was having more and more of them, and then I had the grand mal seizure, which obviously ended up to the diagnosis. The next question is, what was your reaction to the diagnosis? I don't remember a lot, like right after the seizure, but I do remember him telling me the diagnosis. So I had a 3-month-old at the time, and my whole family was at the hospital with me in the ER, and everyone had cleared out of the room so that I could breastfeed my daughter. So it was just me and the baby, and I had finished breastfeeding and we were just kind of sitting there. I didn't know where everyone was. I was not in a state where I could just text people and be like, oh, you guys can come in. Like, I just kind of was sitting there, and the doctor came in and he said, "So I want to talk to you without everyone else here, and then you can tell people, like, tell your family as you want to." He said, "I looked at your CT scan, and there's a spot there that shouldn't be there. So we need to get you an MRI tonight, which means we need to send you to a different hospital because we can't do that here." And I remember just like holding it together, and I'm sitting there holding my baby and just trying to keep my composure. And honestly, after that, it was just kind of like in the movies where it's like everything gets a little blurry and then you just hear like womp womp womp. Like you I wasn't actually, after he said we found something in there that shouldn't be there, I couldn't hear anything after that. It really, like, it was almost like my ears felt blurry is the best way to describe it. And I think I had maybe a tear or two fall while the doctor was in there with me, and then he stepped out and I lost it. I started bawling my eyes out, and I still didn't know where anyone was. I tried to call my husband. I knew he was at the ER. I had seen him, like he was with me, but he had gone home, I think, to get stuff. I called him. I couldn't get a hold of him. I ended up calling his dad thinking he was with him. And that ended up being the first person I told, just because that was the first person I was talking to. I said they found a spot in my brain that's not supposed to be there. I need Chris. And I don't really remember what happened after that. Chris showed up somehow, some way. Um, and then my family, actually, I'm sorry, my family was back in the room, and I don't remember who told them. I didn't. I remember when Chris got back into the room, my mom was like, "Chris doesn't know." And I said, "No, Chris does know," because then I had talked to him. So, see, I don't really remember a whole lot from the hospital. Honestly, most of my memories, I don't think are actually memories. They're based off of videos that I took that I don't remember taking. Do you have cancer? This is probably the most asked question that I get across all platforms on all my videos. My answer to that is I fucking hope not. But we don't know. We will not know until they biopsy it or take it out completely and send it to pathology. Not knowing whether I have a cancerous crater sitting in my brain is stressful, but I try not to think about it because there's nothing I can do about that fact. And again, we won't know until we take it out, which is one of the motivators for Chris and I to remove it, so that we have that closure of knowing what it is or what it was. But obviously, as you guys, if you're new, if you have been here, you know that taking it out comes with the price of likely losing my vision on my right side. So, but again, it's one of those things where that is a small price to pay to be alive. What has been the hardest part of this journey? Option D, all of the above. The hardest part, it's changed through the course of this entire journey. So this started in October of 2024. That's when I was diagnosed. In the beginning, the hardest part was I emotionally shut down, and I thought that if I had any emotions, I was just gonna die, which is completely irrational. But I genuinely was like, if I get sad, if I get angry, if I feel anything, this tumor is just going to implode and I'm going to die. So I shut down and I was emotionally not feeling anything. I wasn't really speaking because talking and communicating and thinking were really hard. It was almost like someone had reset my brain and I was lagging, and just really, it was hard to restart. So that was really hard. And then when I came out of that, not being at work was really hard. I felt so much guilt of not being at work. I felt guilt for my coworkers. I felt guilt that I felt like I was lazy and a piece of shit for not working, even though even today, even if I could be at work, I could not function at the level I was before. That's hard in itself, and my brain not working the way it did before the seizure. And my speaking and thinking has come such a long way from the seizure, but I'm nowhere near where I was before. And that's one of those invisible wounds, which is also another hard part of this, is the people that know, like you watching this know I have a brain tumor, but random people don't, which is kind of nice. It feels like Hannah Montana sometimes, like walking up to a stranger and they don't know. Um, that's nice, but it has also become, I mean, this is the biggest thing I'm dealing with right now. So it is a big part of my identity. And I think I have adopted it as a piece of my identity for the time being, almost like keep your friends close, enemies closer. And by keeping it kind of close, I think that's just how I'm coping and dealing with it. But now I'm veering off topic. The hardest part is being afraid of dying. The hardest part is definitely being afraid of dying. And it feels like even more is at stake with a baby. Obviously, if I didn't have my daughter yet, I would have Chris and my family and my friends that I'd be so scared of losing if I died. But when it comes to having a kid, the stakes just feel a lot higher. And I don't want her to grow up without me. I don't want her to grow up without a mom. So that's definitely the hardest part. How has this diagnosis affected your relationship with friends and family? This is an interesting one because I have changed so drastically in the last couple of months, through therapy, through the trauma, through healing. And healing is not linear, so a lot of stuff is going back to my childhood, and working through hurt and just things that I didn't resolve, from years. It's not just what I'm dealing with right now. Well, let's go down the line. Let's start with my marriage. You know what? Chris and I are pretty open about this stuff, so I'm gonna be blunt with you. Our marriage took a hit. And becoming new parents is really hard. You kind of get stuck into this roommate phase, and then compound the stress of being a new parent with a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and then not having any real answers for 3 whole months, plus taking me out of work. Our income is not the same as it was before. That's a whole lot of stress, and we're pretty young. Like we have been married for 2 years. I mean, I've been with him, we've been together for years, but we've been married for 2 years. And I'm 24 and he's 30. Like, this is uncharted territory for everyone we know, let alone becoming new parents and getting a brain tumor diagnosis within 3 months of each other. Like, that's just hard. And I really, throughout this whole process, my whole mantra that keeps me going is sometimes things have to completely fall apart to be built back better. And that stands tried and true for our marriage. The whole thing fell apart down to the foundation, where we both looked at each other one morning and just said, we both need to figure out if we can be in this together and be healthy for our daughter. And that was obviously not an easy conversation. I mean, no one wants to have that conversation, but I'm so glad we did. It was almost like that recalibrated us, to the point where, now we're both making an active effort in our marriage, in our relationship, and we're addressing things that had been bothering both of us, but just had gone unspoken for years now, because we were in this rat race for our careers or whatever it was. We never slowed down to really take time for each other in our relationship. And I think that that's one thing that I've really taken away from this situation is my relationship with Chris has always been the most stable relationship in my life. And so I took that for granted. Not just for granted, but I neglected it because it was always so stable. So then when all these stressors added on to it, yes, we were still above water, but I mean, we were both getting exhausted, from treading water the way we had. So the long way about what I'm trying to say is our marriage has gotten nothing but stronger. We are really putting those vows to work for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. And I'm honestly so grateful because we're better people, better partners, and better parents because of it. So yeah, our marriage has gotten exponentially better with this scenario. But it wasn't it wasn't great. It hasn't all been rainbows and sunshine. It's been really hard. And it's been work, and it always is going to be work. We always need to put time and effort and energy and attention into our marriage. And I think that this was just one of those wake up calls, and we're not taking each other for granted anymore. And we really love each other and we want to be here. It's a choice. As far as friends and family, obviously, I have had to be really vulnerable and being dependent on family specifically for basic tasks that I didn't need before. So rides to go get Julia, rides to go get groceries. In the beginning, I needed help with everything. I couldn't even be home alone. I needed like a babysitter. So just I've gotten a lot of quality time with my family. My sister happened to move up here with literally the week that the seizure happened. So I've gotten a lot of really good time with everyone, which I appreciate. And I feel like we're all healing in different ways and navigating this in our own way, but we're all stronger because of it. And then as far as friends, I have withdrawn from just about everyone, which if you are watching this and you haven't heard from me in a while, I do sincerely apologize. I get very overstimulated and overwhelmed easily now. And when that happens, I just shut down. So if I have a lot of unread texts, I avoid my phone. I've been putting my phone on Do Not Disturb. There's a lot going on in our life behind the scenes that I have not shared with the internet that doesn't necessarily directly impact me. And I'm not going to share family members' health statuses or anything like that. I'll share my story, but I don't want to share theirs. But we do have a lot of added stress. So I've been just putting my phone on Do Not Disturb and then opening it when I feel like I'm in the headspace to be able to accept all this information. So my friendships have taken a hit in the sense that I'm not very present in them, and I feel bad for that. I also have a handful of really good friends who have just stood by, and they're there in the wings and they are ready to jump in when I need them, and they don't make me feel guilty when I am quiet or if I'm not there. And I know that I haven't been able to show up as 100% as I would like to, but they've stood by me, and my circle has gotten really small, and that's okay. Have you had any side effects of treatment? So the only treatment that I have had so far is my anti-seizure medicines, and yeah, we've had some pretty bad side effects. All related to Keppra. So I've talked about this in a video too, but depression, anxiety, thoughts of unaliving myself, with the depression and the anxiety, withdrawing, shutting down, and being very irritable. The irritability has definitely died off lately, but I've also been making a priority to do things that make me happy. Those have been the side effects, which is why we are sharing. Oh, and the biggest one, which this is a perfect example of this one, I can't access my cognitive abilities. So I tested, and I am considered a high functioning person, which pat on my back because that's impressive given the state that I feel. So my cognitive abilities are still there, but the Keppra essentially like turns the lights down on your brain, turns down the activity, so I'm not having seizures. With that, it has turned down my ability to access the cognitive thinking. So that's why they're switching me onto a new anti-seizure medicine. And they think that once I get transitioned fully onto the lamotrigine, the lights are going to turn back on and I'm going to feel more like myself, both emotionally and be able to access my thinking skills, which would be great because I would love, all I want to do is content strategize, and I still have not been able to. So being able to do that would just really make me happy, because then I could get back to work. I could just be get my life a little bit back to normal. How did you find your medical team? So my PCP has been in the loop this whole time, and they're very hands-on and very helpful, their entire staff. But in particular, I have one RN and then my physician, who have been like life-changing. They're there for Chris, Julie, and I in every sense of the word. Like when they say they're there to help, they mean it. And I can't thank them enough. I don't want to name drop because it's just safety, but you know who you are. And they made two recommendations. We went to both places, and I actually have two medical teams that I'm working with, and I did put all of my information into the Cleveland Clinic for a third opinion, just to see what they have to say, especially where the two medical teams ended up on total opposite ends of the spectrum. I would kind of like a tiebreaker to see which way we should lean. And then, how did you choose a treatment plan? That one is interesting because we still have not set a plan in stone. Like I said, the two teams are on polar opposites, and then I got to meet with one of the doctors, and she gave me a lot of insight as to how one team ended up with their verdict, and their tumor board was split. So half of them thought it's small enough, it's stable right now, let's take it out immediately so we don't have to worry about this being cancer, like let's just remove it. The other half said we only have 2 sets of scans, this seems premature to risk her vision when she's only 24, not let alone stroke, death, messing anything else up in my brain. So they were split. And I think that that's probably what happened with my other medical team. I'm meeting with him tomorrow, so I will keep you guys posted on how they determine their decision, but they were on the less aggressive side. So as of right now, I need more scans, more data points. The end result will be surgery. It's just a matter of when do we dive into that. Next question. Did they do this says BX. I think that means biopsy. What is the diagnosis of the tumor? So we kind of went into this. We have not done a biopsy yet because they said that even touching it to do a biopsy jeopardizes my vision in my right eye. If we're going to jeopardize my vision, we're just going to take it out. Diagnosis as of right now is a slow growing tumor. That's all we have. How are you coping with the anxiety of the unknown? Better. That's a loaded question. I'm definitely doing better than I was in the beginning. The beginning was very, very hard. Like I kind of got into in the beginning. I was paralyzed by fear, and now I'm getting, I think I don't know if I'm desensitizing to it or if I'm just accepting that tomorrow is not a promise. I mean, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. So I think it's just more relevant in my life that now than it was before the diagnosis, because we know that there's something wrong. But we're all on countdowns. We all have an expiration date, and I am really trying to ground myself in the present, because if I'm worrying, then I'm too far in the future. Then I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Same thing with the past. If I'm sitting there rehashing things that already happened, then I'm not living in the present, and it's the present for a reason. It's a gift, and I know I sound like a fucking walking cliche, but they're cliches for a reason. And just learning to be present has been the thing that has freed me the most from the fear and the anxiety. What is the best case scenario? Will it affect you long term? I think best case scenario is it evaporates, but I don't think that that's going to happen. Um, Best case scenario, I guess, is we take it out and I have no deficits. Will it affect me long term? There are so many different factors and outcomes that determine that. If we don't take it out, then yeah, it's going to affect me long term, because I'm going to live with this fear and anxiety of not knowing what's going on, and then the time and the dedication to doing repeat scans every couple months. If we take it out, my vision, obviously, if I can't see out of my right eye, I will adapt, but that will affect me long term. Or they take it out and miraculously I have no deficits, then we're golden, right? But I'll always carry, and while I'm working through the trauma of everything that has happened in the last, well, now almost 4 months, I'll carry this forever. So yeah, I guess there's going to be long-term effects. Did you have any symptoms like I am so sorry. Did you have any symptoms mentally, brain fog, confusion? I had a lot of brain fog, but I was also postpartum. That's what makes this so hard to decipher. what's postpartum, what's hormonal, and then what was brain tumor. I would say my only symptom was the ocular disruptions. I think the brain fog, pregnancy brain is real, and that started when I got pregnant. And I think that the brain fog really was just postpartum. Postpartum's fucking wild. And I think that that's just part of it. Why do you share this journey online? um, a lot of reasons. The first one is when I was diagnosed, I Googled or was searching on TikTok and Google, what do you do when you're diagnosed with a brain tumor? And I couldn't find a single vlog. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted to see someone like me or just a younger person living with this. I wanted an example. I wanted to know what to expect. I wanted just some sort of an expectation. Um, and there wasn't any. And that felt really isolating and terrifying. So I feel like by sharing this journey, I hope none of my followers end up in a situation like this. But if you are or you do end up in a situation like this, I hope that you can look at my content and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to be okay. You're going to heal. I know I am so much better of a person because of everything that has happened since the brain tumor diagnosis. And I want you to see that it's hard. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to, um, I want to be transparent. That's the biggest thing. And I'm still trying to find the line between transparency and I don't want to look like I'm looking for pity, because that's not what it is at all. Like there's a whole slew of things that come with being diagnosed with a brain tumor that are more than just being scared of dying and choosing a treatment plan and sitting in an MRI machine. Financial stress and dealing with insurance companies and just how a diagnosis like this kind of spider webs into every vein of your life. And I didn't know that that was what was going to happen. And so I guess I share so that, like I said, if anyone ends up in a situation like this, they just have some sort of an idea. Obviously, every person, every case is going to look different. But just so that there is someone out there who's gone through it or is going through it and can be of somewhat of comfort for you. The other part of it in the beginning was it was the only way I could self-express. I am a writer by nature. I've written 12 books, but I couldn't write in the beginning. Especially right after the seizure, I had such a hard time communicating my thoughts verbally, let alone writing. And then every time I went to write, I got so frustrated because it wasn't like it used to be. And I felt stupid. I had lost that internal cadence that I used to have for writing. And so I would get really frustrated. And the only thing I felt I had left to self-express and create was to make videos. It was also another form. More recently, it's a lot easier for me to sit down and talk to you like this than it is to have the same conversation 100 times over. And it is not from a lack of gratitude. I'm so thankful that so many people are checking in on us and making sure we're okay. It's hard to talk about the scariest and hardest thing in your life over and over and over again. So to make a video like this and talk about it once and then post it, is in a selfish way easier for me, than rehashing it over and over again. And the last one's kind of morbid, but if something does go wrong and I'm not around, I want Julia to have my voice and videos of me, showing, you know, our life and what I went through and that I did fight my absolute hardest for. So, how has the tumor changed your goals and priorities in life? I've talked about this a little bit before. I raced through life before the diagnosis. I got all my high school credits done my junior year of high school. I got a head start on my college credits my senior year of high school. I graduated college a year early, got married, bought a house, had a baby. All before 20, or I was 24 when we had the baby. All of that happened in the 4 years before. Opened a business, started a podcast with my best friend, published 12 books. I've always just raced through life. Always goal oriented. I still have goals, but I'm much more focused on the process than the outcome because I want to be happy every day. I don't want my happiness to teeter on the edge of accomplishing something and it be a fleeting moment. I want to just be happy all the time. Life is way too short to not be happy and to be putting happiness off until you achieve something. As far as priorities, health, mental and physical. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. My number one priority is my marriage and my family, which my marriage was never the priority, which I hate fucking admitting, but it's true because it was always so stable. It was at the bottom of the list because I didn't really feel like I had to worry about it or put attention into it, which is so far from the fucking truth. But I gaslit myself into believing it because I was so busy with other things that I was chasing endlessly. So my priorities have literally switched upside down. My number one priority is my marriage and my family. And then from there is my health, mental and physical, so that I can contribute to my family. And then my career comes after that. And my career, I don't even know how to describe that shift because I'm not the same person I was before mentally. I hope that I can get back to who I was before and perform at the level I was before. But at the very least, my priority with my career is to do something fulfilling, which I love content. I love content creating. And I really hope I can get back to a place where I can content strategize because I really love my job. I just hope I can get those pieces back. But if not, I will have to figure something out and just keep rolling with the punches. Has this experience changed your thoughts on faith or spirituality? I've always been a pretty spiritual person. I don't ever share that online, but very much so in the sense that I have recentered myself. I grew up Catholic, but I never really aligned with the older practices. And I'm just trying to find kind of what works for me. I always did like an Advent study during Christmas time, which I always enjoyed. Right now I'm using that Grace book, so it's a quote and then a little like reading about God, and I'm really enjoying that. And then it has a little space to journal, and that just keeps me kind of centered, like well, not my priority, my attention. It always changes my perspective a little bit and really enlightens me. And so I'm really grateful for that. Obviously, desperate people find faith. That's a Taylor Swift line. Desperate people find faith, so now I pray to Jesus too. Of course, I'm praying. Not in a desperate way. It started as a need and in a desperate way, but now it's just an open conversation for me. That's open every day. And it's not just for myself, obviously. It's for a lot of people that I've come across online who are going through similar things, for just a variety of things. So I guess I've become more open and aware and accepting of faith. And I've also been much more aware of signs around me, owls and cardinals and just little postcards from the universe. Are neurosurgeons intimidating? So I've had two ends of the spectrum. I've had one neurosurgeon who was not intimidating at all, and then I had one neurosurgeon who was very intimidating. So I don't think you can slap a label on them and say one way or the other. I think every doctor is different, and because of that, every neurosurgeon is different. Do you have a therapist? Yes, I do. Therapy is actually an interesting thing because I had been very interested and wanted a therapist before the tumor diagnosis, but it was honestly something I couldn't justify affording at the time, which is so ironic. Because now I'm in a situation where I'm making even less money than I was before. And now I do go to a therapist consistently, and that has been integral in my healing. I have needed that. I needed a space where I can just talk about everything and not feel guilty that I'm being a broken record or be self conscious that I'm repeating myself. Like, it's just a place to talk. And it was actually the first place that I was able to talk. After the seizure, I really shut down. I was not speaking much at all. So it has been life changing to have that outlet. And my therapist is fantastic and has a lot of personal ties to the tumor world. So I'm talking to someone who really understands it inside and out, which I appreciate. What advice would you give someone who was just diagnosed? Mm, So it's different for every single person. I've had a lot of people DM me, and I do take the time to like give a thoughtful response to them when they're facing something like this, and it changes for person to person. Two lines, and I'm just going to leave it at this because I think less is more in this case scenario. The first one is, just because you carry the load well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And the second is, sometimes things have to completely fall apart to be built back better. How did this diagnosis change your routine and day-to-day life? Well, it flipped it upside down. Actually, thank you for asking. Obviously, before the seizure and before the tumor diagnosis, I was a working mom. So I would get up at 4 a.m., work out, get the baby ready, baby to school or daycare. I would get ready, I would go to work, and then come home, cook dinner, rinse, wash, repeat. Then I had the seizure. I can barely spit out a sentence, and now I'm not at work. Still not at work because of the cognitive issues. And I really struggled with not having a routine at first. Um, and I want to know a couple things, mostly because I'm self conscious about this. Sleep is a huge thing. My case, as I've been told multiple times from multiple doctors, is particularly peculiar because I am postpartum. The biggest thing with seizures is you need sleep. Sleep is like the number one, not cure, but the number one remedy to seizure activity. I have a baby. I'm not sleeping through the night. Close, but not always. So that's hard. So I'm beating around the bush. I still feel very self-conscious that I'm not at work. And because of that, obviously my routine has changed. My routine also is very off because I spend a lot of time at doctor's appointments, and I spend an equal amount of time worrying about doctor's appointments. I don't know if I want to answer this question. The only constants in our life are Julia's daycare routine and then me making content. But even making content is not structured, and I don't want to cry in like a fourth video in a row. Before the seizure is content strategy, and I try at least 3 times a week minimum to try to strategize just my YouTube channel or my TikTok, and I still can't. Makes me feel like a failure, and it makes me really nervous that maybe I won't get that part of my brain back. A big part of seizures is sleep. I have a baby, so we don't sleep through the night. So I can't get up at 5 a.m. because sometimes I need that extra 2 hours of sleep. My doctors keep saying discipline is not the priority right now. Self-care is, and self-care is sleep for me. Um, I'm not used to. I used to have such a rigid 4 a.m. morning routine. And so I think part of the issue with that also is that I feel like a failure for not being able to get out of bed, which used to be a choice. And now it's not. literally keeping me from having seizures if I get the right amount of sleep. So it's a lot of readjusting and tweaking. You know what? On a regular note, I'm back into reading and writing every day. Those were two things I really struggled with right after the seizure. So I'm really proud of myself for getting back into those two things and doing them consistently. I couldn't remember how to cook or make a grocery list. Used to, oh, it was so fucking hard after the seizure. But now I'm getting back into the rhythm of things, and I really want to learn. I want to enhance my cooking skills. So I think I'm gonna focus on that here in the next coming weeks. To keep my mind occupied and to learn a new skill and to learn how to learn, because I'm relearning how to do a lot of things. Last question is, where is the tumor located? So I actually have my scans here. So I'm going to show you. And I can also do a whole video diving into this. This is just a quick to show you. But I can do, if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments and I will do a whole bit on this. So this is my brain, and where that little, let's see if I can hold this without dropping it. Right here, that's the tumor. That's in my occipital lobe. So it's on, I don't quite understand this part, but the way this MRI took, it's on my left side, so it's back here, but it affects my right-sided vision. From the top of my head looking down, and again, you're looking at that square, that right there is where it's located. This shows it a little bit better. That dark spot is the tumor. So it should look like over here, it all looks kind of the same, but it is actually that part. And like I said, I will do a better demonstration of what that looks like and what all these scans mean. We met with a neuro-oncologist the other day who was kind enough to actually take the time to go through the scans with us slide by slide and really explain everything in detail, which was super helpful. And honestly, it was the first tangible thing that we've been able to grasp onto since the diagnosis. Everything has been, we don't know, we need more information, we need more testing. And for her to like actually show us my brain and show us what each thing means was huge and so beneficial and helpful to us. So yeah, I hope that answers all of your questions. If you have more questions, please drop them in the comments and I will try to respond to them, or we can do a part 2 of brain tumor Q&As. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for watching. Wow, I can't speak. Thank you so much for watching from the bottom of my heart. It means the world to me. I am so thankful for you. I'm also so thankful that we have hit 1,000 subscribers. That is a goal I've had for years. I cannot believe that we did it. So thank you so much for being here. I can't express my gratitude enough. And I will see you in the next video.